Duke, how are we doing?
I'm doing good. How about you, man? How's it going?
I'm doing well, just surviving.
Did you get any Muay Thai practice in this week?
I went, let's see. No, well, I'd skipped jujitsu because I was doing Muay Thai, and then I did jujitsu on Monday or last Monday, and I popped my elbow, and then I took a few days off from that, and then I was like, I'll just wait through the weekend, and then now that it's Thanksgiving week, um, since I have family coming, I was like, I won't have time to get a COVID test before everyone comes, so I'll
Mhm.
just wait. And I would rather just go to the gym, but you know, it would be a lot of my family is kind of weird about COVID, so I would rather just get that done and then be able to go back to the gym.
Got it. Sounds good.
Deal. How's Arizona?
It's good, man. I got my COVID test negative, so
Is that your first one?
no, I take it weekly, but this one's specifically important because I'm going back to San Diego this week, so that's good.
Yeah. Do you have to quarantine now?
No,
Oh.
yeah,
Do you why do you get tested weekly, just for your own
just
sake?
because I go out and
Yeah.
if I go out, I don't want to
Yeah.
get COVID to people, so I just do it by myself because if I'm gonna going out and getting drinks, then might as well be careful.
Yeah. It's pretty much what I do. And because since I'm interacting with my girlfriend and she's going home,
Mhm.
seeing her family, it's just better like to be more responsible on my end if I just do it. Because
Definitely.
I'm going to the gym 4 days a week, close
Yeah,
contact.
definitely.
Um, but let's jump into it. So I guess we can recap kind of the main events for the last 2 weeks that we've been off. So 2 weeks ago we had the fight night with Felder and RDA, and that was, I mean, it was kind of the result I was expecting, but I thought Felder just he did a hell of a job just sticking in there, and his cardio was so good considering he was coming off 5 days notice. And I know he's been training for like triathlons, but still the cardio is so different in a fight than training for like an event like that. So the fact that he was able to go in there and do the groundwork, do the all the grappling, do the stand up, it was pretty impressive. And I mean, it showed that Felder probably shouldn't be retired.
Yeah, definitely. I was actually surprised how fast he looked in from rounds 1 through 5. Like he wasn't even training like MMA or even boxing. He just wasn't doing anything. He was just running, biking, and swimming. So the last 3 months, so he looked extremely fast. And uh, yeah, after the fight, he was like, "I'm not retired. I'm here to stay." Like he was reinvigorated. I feel his fire to fight. So that's good. He's a good fighter. Top 5, top 7. So it's definitely good. I kind of expected RDA to kind of just out wrestle him and kind of get him to the ground, kind of play with the clinch on the fence and secure his takedowns. But people forget how good RDA is at 155.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of those things is at one point RDA was, when he was supposed to fight Connor, I was like, this is like, I think if they had actually fought and Connor didn't fight Diaz, I think RDA, I'm not saying he would have beaten Connor, but I think he very well could have beaten Connor. And that was Connor's first appearance at lightweight. And RDA at that time was such a killer, the way he was beating guys up, the way he finished Cerrone, the way he finished Pettis, um, the way he was just brutally beating guys, going up to that title. But he looked good. He looked sharp. His power has always been really good. His wrestling was really good. He looks like a complete fighter, and he's got a really good chin. So it'll be interesting to see where the UFC puts him now in the rankings and who he draws, because I don't know who. I mean, it seems like Chandler is still kind of waiting for someone. Tony just got booked. Oliveira's booked. Connor and Dustin are booked. Maybe Hooker makes sense. Um, I mean, considering, like you said, Felder is definitely a top 10 guy. So I think that definitely gives RDA a big boost to fight some of those upper guys. But what do you think? What's like a matchup you think makes sense for him next?
Well, here we could talk, we're gonna get into all the different lightweight matchups later, but like you said, Oliveira and Ferguson are matched up. Hooker needs a dance partner, but Michael Chandler I think is gonna fight Justin Gaethje. I'm pretty sure about that. So yeah, probably Hooker can definitely get in there. So Hooker's coming off a loss and he can bounce back with a good win against RDA, and then RDA can. I think it kind of goes the same, to be honest. We could go into that, but I think he kind of out grapples Hooker. He's a little taller, Hooker, so
Yeah.
it would kind of be hard for him to kind of get that wrestling position of or his head position and getting his hips down. And I think it goes similar unless Hooker can land some good hands and some good strikes and chop that leg and
Yeah.
do some real damage on the stand-up. But I think RDA has a good matchup with Hooker, and they'll lead him into that top 5 range, top 3, top 5 if he beats him.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I mean, both those guys are looking to get back into top 5 competition. Um, Hooker Hooker's style is interesting because he has good, like, he's well rounded in pretty much every area, but he's kind of lacking. There's like one thing that's just lacking that you can't really put your finger on. Like, he's tough. He's got great like fight IQ just in his stand up. His jujitsu is actually pretty underrated. He's just his body type. I think it lends itself to being almost a little less athletic for that weight class, like almost like Nate Diaz, where he's almost too lanky for his, where you would think it would play out well striking, but it somehow is at a disadvantage when you're draining yourself that much. But I think your analysis is pretty spot on. I think RDA would probably just punish him just like Poirier did. I think the power is very similar. The aggressive style is very similar. They're both very tough. I think Hooker would wear down, and unless Hooker plays kind of defense and tries to catch RDA, I don't think that's going to be a good matchup for him. As for Felder, although he did have a very good performance and showed he's still very game, the way I looked at that fight is that he's still kind of the guy that he's always been, which is a very solid fighter, but never good enough to be like a real title, I guess, like not someone that you would ever be like, yeah, he's a top 5 lightweight. Just like Cerrone has kind of always been in that same light where he's going to always put on a great performance. He's always going to be game. He's always going to bring it, but he just lacks that thing that allows him to kind of go up to the next tier. And I just don't think there's anything that makes sense for Felder in the top 10 unless he's fighting the loser of one of these upcoming fights, maybe. I think if Tony loses again or if Oliveira loses, I think that would warrant, if they can beat Felder, bounce off his name. And, if Tony's still around at that point, then I think that makes sense. But we can get to that in a bit. But what do you think of like just Felder's, like, he looked good, but is he like, what is his position right now in the division?
See, that's interesting, right? Because he like does a lot of stuff. Like he does commentating for the UFC, and he is an analyst and does extra stuff for ESPN Plus. And you tend to think like how much time, how much weight does that play in his life, right? Like, which is perfectly fine that he does those kind of things, but can he become champion doing those things and balancing fighting at the same time? I remember Luke Thomas said something about it, and he was like, if he wants to maximize either position, whether it's being an analyst or being a fighter, you have to tend to just choose one eventually. So if he ever wants to become champion, I think he has a long way to go, just time-wise, just because he's split in so many ways. But I still think he's in that 5 to 7 range always. And I think if he gets this decision against Hooker, he kind of has a different trajectory in the lightweight division. But he's definitely in there. But his future is kind of definitely not a champion if he's going to continue to be an analyst and all that.
Yeah. I think you're definitely spot on with that. I think he could definitely be. I think the way I look at Felder is that he has a very high floor, but his ceiling is very low compared to some of the other guys in the division that haven't hit their peak. And there's also guys in the division that are just like special, like they have that special trait that causes them to be really, really hard matchups for anyone in the division. And Felder and Hooker and some of the other guys like Al Iaquinta, like they just lack that trait that is like, oh man, that's going to be a problem for guys in this division. That's going to be the thing that causes like can lead them to be like a top 3, top 2 guy champion. You know what I mean? Like Felder, it's just when I watch him, I don't see that it. And obviously he's kind of past his prime a little bit, but it's just maybe he dedicates more time to fighting. Maybe he becomes sharper. Maybe his ground game gets a little more refined and he's becomes that fighter. But I don't see the like I don't see that potential, I guess. Maybe that's just me.
Yeah, definitely. It's kind of hard because he fought a close fight against Hooker, and Dan Hooker was a top 5 lightweight, you know. And some people say he won. Personally, I think he won, but definitely, I think it's just about time with him. Like he's like not necessarily in that Cowboy Cerrone range where it's like he's fighting but he's losing, and he's definitely still in the mix, but definitely not in his prime, and definitely not champion material yet. But you never know.
Very true. Very true. I guess moving on from those two guys, looking at unless there was anything on that card you wanted to touch on, I was just going to move on to this weekend's
Yeah,
card.
this weekend, let's do it.
So the first, I didn't really watch too much of the whole main card other than the 2 championship fights. Um, I know there were some other good fights on there, but the 2, obviously Valentina, just a monster. So mainly wanted to focus on her. As far as like the female fighters go, Valentina is just, I mean, she's just the best. I think if not for her like size, she's the best female fighter in my opinion. I think her lack of physical ability is the only thing keeping her obviously away from Nunes, but she just continues to show like consistency, the striking, the grappling, like her judo, her wrestling, on top of her elite striking that she showed against Maya. Maya controlled her at some points, but I mean, anytime Valentina initiated the grappling, it was just very, very beautiful. And of course, her boxing is just phenomenal. Um, I'd like to see her finish someone like Maya, but she still dominated most of the fight, aside from some of the grappling exchanges. But yeah, I'm trying to think who's next for her in the division.
Jessica Andrade,
At featherweight, or is it at?
125.
Oh, what am I saying? Not featherweight, flyweight.
Mm-hmm.
Um, oh, that's a good fight. That's a very good fight. Oh man, how do you see that playing out?
Personally, I think Valentina is a little too technical. I think it kind of goes how the Rose Jessica fight went. Like she's kind of just too technical for her. But just talking about Valentina, I think she's kind of hit that Floyd Mayweather syndrome where if someone wins 1 round against her, like Jennifer did win round 2, it's kind of like, oh, there's holes in her game, even though she won 4 of the 5 rounds and just completely dominated. So like from a fan perspective, like she's kind of hit that ceiling where it's like, oh, like no one's gonna beat her. So like that Floyd Mayweather, like, oh, if someone's in one round lands one good punch, like everybody's like shocked. She was such a big favorite. Like it was like minus 2,000.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, like the biggest odd, like the biggest favorite in UFC history. Like,
Was that true?
yeah, it would have been the biggest upset ever in UFC history if Jennifer would have won. So definitely, like I think she's hit that ceiling where it's like, what else can she do? She kind of needs a Daniel Cormier to kind of reinvigorate her like spice to the fans, right? And
Yeah.
personally, I think that's either Whaley coming up or her going back up and fighting Amanda one more time, because people can argue that she won that second fight. I personally thought she won that second fight, but definitely in the real world, Amanda won. But I think it was scored pretty poorly. But definitely for Valentina, she's just so technical. Even though her grappling, that body lock she does, where she closes her hands gets double underhooks and closes her hand and kind of pushes her weight and falls on top of her opponent, is technically not the best, because you could easily like spring off of the impact and reverse her to get Valentina on the bottom. But she just does it so like forcefully that even though technically it's wrong, like Daniel Cormier was saying, it works for her. So
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that's the thing. Yeah, going back to your first point, yeah, I think people tend to overanalyze the great fighters because it's like, what can we look at? Any sign of like they're losing 1 second of the fight, it's like, oh, they're not good. Like somehow with the Khabib Connor fight, it was like, oh man, Connor won the second round, so he's such a monster. Like, I mean, you can't overanalyze it. And I think, like you said, Valentina has been dominant throughout every round of every fight she's fought. And the Nunes fight is just, yeah, that's kind of what I was trying to refer to earlier. Is there's such a gap in I guess, the size and the power department. Amanda is just a freak. Like she's like a technical female Brock Lesnar. Like she is everything that you don't want to fight if you're a woman fighter, female fighter, because she has the range, she's precise, she has the power, she's smart, she has good grappling, she's tough. Like there are no holes in her game other than like if she's fighting someone like Valentina, she's just going to be slower. And that's the only disadvantage she has. So it's like, what can Valentina offer other than she's the next best female fighter, right? And that sucks. They're not working.
Alexa.
Anyways, so yeah, pretty much. I just don't see it being like that close. I mean, I see it being close, but I don't see it being something that the fans would really clamor for. I know we would personally love to see it, but I just don't know if it's going to happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, let's go on to the main event.
Do you want to intro to this one?
Yeah, so for the Figueiredo versus Perez fight, it was pretty quick, not gonna lie. He's just so talented on the feet, Figueiredo. Just his boxing is so clean, and then if you try to take him to the ground, his scrambles. If you look at the final sequence, Perez has his back for like a good 2 to 3 seconds, but then Figueiredo gets, I think, an overhook and guillotines him and kind of transitions his body over and secures a leg. I think he hooks a leg, and that's why he's able to get the guillotine, and he puts him out, which is the crazy part. Like if you're a flyweight, where are you gonna fight him? If you try to fight him on the feet, he has that power. He's fast. He's pretty technical with his timing and his speed. He has all the weapons. He has kicks, elbows, punches. But if you take him to the ground, he has that jiu-jitsu, that black belt kind of hips, and he's able to kind of maneuver and scramble like the flyweights do and able to get submissions. So like the only challenge I really see for him right now is if Cody went down or if Henry Cejudo came back, to be honest.
Yeah. I agree. I think he's kind of been like an unprecedented. Hey, turn that off. He's been kind of an unprecedented like player in that division because there's so much turnover, and just the fact that he's come in and been like no one really pays attention to that division, and now that he's just come in and completely just blown it up and done it so easily. It's, that's something that kind of is indicative of a long standing, champion, just like Demetrius, just like, I mean, I guess not just like Cejudo, but you could see that Cejudo had the ability, if he wanted, to just carry that division on his back. So I think Figueiredo has all the tools to do that, and I don't see anyone really stopping him. The Brandon Moreno fight, that doesn't really like Brandon Moreno, I don't think offers anything that Figueiredo can't stop. I mean, anyone can be beaten, but I just don't see it happening. Cejudo would be very interesting. They both have a lot of power, great grapplers. Um, I mean, Figueiredo was like kind of overconfident in this last fight. He looked a little like almost like he had a little bit of a Connor in him. When he was out in those striking exchanges, he wasn't really afraid. I think Cejudo has, we know how good Cejudo is, and I think he could definitely give Figueiredo some trouble. Garbrandt, I mean, we don't know how that cut will affect him. I think Garbrandt definitely can give Figueiredo some trouble, but those are two guys who really, you can't count on to stay in the division and actually, become the flyweight champion. So because of that, it's like what natural flyweight can actually stay and give him trouble, which is no one, in my opinion.
Is Figueiredo a future star to you? If he learns English?
I mean, he's got cool hair. But, I mean, that's a good question. I mean, I think as long as the UFC is marketing itself well and actually marketing their flyweight champions, I mean, it's definitely possible. I think he has more potential than Mighty Mouse did. And I think the way he's finishing people and his style of fighting, and if he can stay consistent and keep winning, I don't think there's any reason that he can't be just as popular as someone like Valentina or someone like Wele. So, I just think the lower weight divisions are kind of looked over, but I think he has so much to offer that I think he could definitely, cement himself in those like right in that echelon.
Yeah, I would agree. Like if that UFC machine starts pumping out Figueiredo content, show his story about how he was a sushi chef or a barber or a hairstylist, starts pumping out that UFC machine material. I think and he learns a little English, learns how to trash talk a little bit in English. I think he can be a surprisingly star, you could
Yeah,
say.
yeah. No, I think that he has all the tools. He just has to. The UFC has to kind of help in that way too. They have to work alongside them, and be able to promote. But there was a interesting question that I kind of saw on Instagram the other day, and it wasn't really so much a question, but like a just a imaginary scenario where Patricio Pitbull from Bellator, featherweight and lightweight champion, and it was comparing him versus the top 15 at featherweight in the UFC. And people were very divided on where they thought that he landed in that. And for me personally, I do more research on Pitbull because for me, it's like the Bellator bias always seeps in. But, I looked at some of his fights and I looked at especially the Chandler fight because you got to look at that. And the fact that he just knocks Chandler out cold at lightweight, it was very impressive. And I was looking, at the rankings and trying to determine like where a guy like that fits, and it was very hard for me to figure that out because first of all, he's 5'5", so even at featherweight, he's pretty small, and his style is very. He has like a almost like a Conor McGregor, Lyoto Machida type stance, but he's way more stocky, so it looks kind of weird, and he doesn't really mix up his striking all that much. So I was trying to think, I love thinking like where would the best guys in Bellator fit in the UFC? And so I don't know. Like I just where would you rank him at featherweight?
If you look at featherweight, right, you have some big featherweights. Like you have Zabit, he's tall. You have Max, he's tall. Alexander's the champion, but he's the closest in size to Patricio, and I don't think he matches up well with Alexander at all. So I think when you're that small, right, and you're fighting at 145, a weight class that's like a little bit higher than what you should be fighting at 5'5", your technical ability has to kind of exceed your height and your physical limitations, right? So,
Yeah.
So I think just technically though, the way he matches up with the featherweights in the UFC is not particularly that well. Like I think Calvin Kattar is a better boxer than him. I think Max is a better total striker than him. I think Volkanovski out wrestles him, out grapples him, out overall games him. But I'd say like top 10. Like he's still good, don't get me wrong, but like nowhere near the top 3.
Yeah. No, I could agree on that. It's one of those arguments too where his record I think is like 32-4, something like that. I don't have it pulled up right now, but he's lost like his only losses I think have been to like top name guys, at least recently. And yeah, it's like almost like with Fedor, like back in his time, people considered him like the greatest, but we all kind of knew he was beating tomato cans. And by the time he came to the, not UFC, but to Bellator, it was too late, and he was kind of out of his prime. But yeah, because I was arguing with someone on Instagram about it, and people really, really love to hype up the Bellator guys, but I was thinking like, there's no way he beats Kattar, Max, no way he beats Zabit, Ortega, Volkanovski. So I don't know. I thought it was interesting, especially since he is a legit double champ. That's a hard thing to do, and to actually maintain it is a hard thing to do.
Yeah, we're gonna be finding out soon how good Michael Chandler is. So
yeah, hopefully sooner rather than later. We need to see a fight booked. But on top of that, I guess moving on to the next segment, we have the first fight that was announced recently was Kattar and Holloway. That is a great fight. That fight scares me as a Holloway fan, because I think Kattar is sneaky good on the feet. Like he's good, obviously. Everyone knows he's good, but his boxing, his range, and the fact that Max gets hit a lot by guys with like good range. We saw it in the Poirier fight. Poirier, Max tried to be aggressive, and Poirier was able to just stand there and trade with him. And Max couldn't out-volume him because the power difference was so great. I think Kattar has that stinging, like straight with both hands, that if Max tries to come in, Kattar's going to tag him. So it's going to be interesting to see what approach Max takes, whether it's with the high kicks from the Volkanovski fight, whether he does more like teeps, whether he tries to play kind of counter to Kattar's boxing. I don't know. It's definitely Kattar is his legs seem susceptible, even though he's gotten better. I think Max can probably exploit the differential and kicking capabilities, but I don't know. that fight is definitely I don't know. To
Yeah. Like I've said before, I think Kattar has the second best 1-2 in MMA in general, next to Connor, of course. His boxing is fantastic, like you said. I think if Kattar looks at the Poirier fight, he can see places that he can win, right? I think he watches that fight more than the Volkanovski fight because I don't think Kattar has that array of weapons like Volkanovski. I think he watches the Poirier fight, sees the angles and sees the range that he can play at. And if he trades one for one, but his hurts a little bit more, I think that's what he does. But also, Max can look at the Z beat versus Kattar fight and see how that long, lanky, like kind of style messes with Kattar's boxing a little bit, especially if you chop the legs and disrupt his boxing like rhythm. That's a pretty even fight in my opinion. Personally, I'm a Holloway fan, and it's a tough matchup, but I think that Volkanovski the rematch showed us a lot of evolution in his striking. He was able to make adjustments, and Teep kind of uses kicks a little more. Didn't depend on his boxing as much. And I think that plays in a good hand for Holloway in this specific fight. I think Holloway should be favored, and personally, I might have to take Holloway in this by a hair, but yeah,
what would be your prediction?
I think it goes to decision. 3 rounds to 2 for Holloway. Holloway takes the earliest rounds and then probably wins 1, 2, and 3 probably, and then Kattar puts it on 4 and 5. Yeah, it goes
Yeah,
to decision. And yeah,
I think Kattar was not able to finish Ige, correct, in their Fight Island main event. So the fact that he couldn't finish Ige, who is a very good fighter, though he's much smaller, his striking is far inferior to Max's, and Kattar was beating him up, but he couldn't finish him. He's about to fight the toughest featherweight in the division, arguably, and he's going to attempt to just try to finish him. Well, we'll see, I guess, what the game plan is, but Kattar's always been a slow starter, like you said. Especially, I think that's what killed him in the Zabit fight is the fact that it was a 3-round fight, and Kattar pretty much didn't even start throwing punches till the second round. That's going to put you at a disadvantage. I think in this fight, it'll probably be similar. I think he'll start slow, try to figure Max out. I think Max will give him a lot of different angles, like he did to Volkanovski. Not really staying in one spot too much, light on his feet. And I think utilizing a lot of what Zabit had success with, like you said. I think that's going to be very, very helpful for Max. I just think Max is arguably the best featherweight still in the UFC, regardless of belt. I think he has the most well-rounded skill set. He's the toughest, the best cardio. Kattar would really, really have to school Max Holloway, which would impress everybody. And I just don't think he can do that, considering how good Max is. So we will see. I guess we'll see in what state Max comes in, what state Kattar comes in. And I guess we'll have a better idea come December.
yes, we will.
But that fight definitely interests me. What else was there? So I guess there was the McGregor fight.
Ferguson versus Oliveira was
Oh
announced.
yeah, very. I guess it's all kind of laying itself together after we talked about it last time. But that I think is, I don't know. I try to think of it in different ways, and I think this is one of those fights where if Oliveira can't get like get Tony like reaching and being over aggressive, and he can't catch Tony with a sneaky submission, I just don't think. I think Tony's just going to beat the shit out of him. Striking, Oliveira's not there to fight with Tony. Grappling, Tony's obviously really good, and it's just Tony's so unconventional. but against a guy as good as Oliveira, you can't risk being, that loose with your Granby rolls and the weird shit you do, the Imanari rolls and whatever else you got up your sleeve. Like,
Tossing sand, tossing
yeah,
sand.
like none of that matters when the guy you're going against is as good as Oliveira. So um, I think if Tony comes in head down, throwing, big punches, not fighting smart, I think Oliveira can definitely go in for, a grappling exchange against the fence, get Tony coming in close, catch him with something while Tony's trying to, pummel him. I mean, I think that's very realistic. I think a guillotine would be probably the most realistic outcome. But
So here's what I'm thinking from my analysis. Tony has only shot a takedown, him shooting for a takedown once in his UFC career, I think. Like legit his entire UFC career, he has only shot once. So it's going to be mostly a stand-up fight unless Oliveira shoots in, and I don't really see that happening. So it's going to be essentially a stand-up fight till it's not a stand-up fight, right? Um, Oliver has dynamic striking ability, you could say, just due to his explosiveness, not necessarily his technical ability. He throws jumping roundhouse kicks, like spinning wheel kicks, like spinning back kicks, spinning back fists. And I think he's going to try to kind of put it on Tony, but Tony's still going to be there. He's going to eat a bunch of shots, but he's still going to be there. Oliveira's going to, if he can't get him out of there within the first 2 rounds, it's going to be looking pretty bad for him because he's going to get pretty tired just due to his explosiveness, not because he's not because he's out of condition or anything, but when you're that explosive and you're that dynamic, similar to Connor, you could only condition yourself so much but your style is conducive to you gassing out a little bit sooner. So I think Tony kind of eats those shots and pushes forward in rounds 3, 4, and 5 and kind of gets a decision on this. And I love Oliveira, but it's just a bad matchup for him, in my opinion.
yeah, so I mean, this, like you said, this is a 3-round fight, I believe, as of right now.
Yeah.
So that will play in Oliveira's favor. Um, but yeah, I mean, Oliveira is going to have to put together a more consistent offense than just flashy techniques if he wants to actually outstrike Tony, because, Pettis is a guy who is considered to have, I guess, more than the average person. He has flashy techniques, and he was hitting Tony pretty good, and Tony just kept coming, and Pettis wasn't able to keep him away, and Pettis ended up breaking his own hand, punching Tony so many times. Um, I think, Oliveira is going to have to figure out a way to manage the distance using the kicks in a smart way, not being too wild. And, if the submission is there, go for it, of course. But I think I agree with your sentiment. I think it definitely goes to the cards unless Oliveira can pull something out sneaky. Tony finishing in a 3-round fight, I don't see it happening. It doesn't seem as likely, especially with the pace he had in his last fight. If Oliveira can move around, I don't think Tony will be able to get hands on him enough. But I still think it'll be a very entertaining fight and has very high stakes for the outcome of the rest of the division, for sure.
I agree.
I had another thing. Give me a sec. So I guess we can finally say that the McGregor-Poirier fight is finally booked. Finally. So the money issues are gone for now. The contract issues are gone. We actually finally get to see the fight we've been waiting for. And my biggest hope is that it doesn't fall short of the expectations that everyone has, because I think the biggest thing is people want to believe that Connor is like taking a step back, Dustin's taking a step forward, and now this fight's going to be a barn burner. But I think it's going to be pretty quick one way or the other. talked about it, but now that wait, can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. You just said it for a little. You're good.
Um, now that the fight has been like confirmed, has anything in your mind changed at all?
Um, I see a lot of MMA media recently talk about how much Dustin has gotten better, and yes, he has gotten better, right? But Connor has gotten better too, right? So like people think that it's that Connor in whatever year it was is versus the current Dustin, right? But it's this year's Dustin versus this year's Connor, right? Connor, I think, learned a lot from that fight. He learned mainly about energy conservation, right? He learned that he gassed out in the Nate Diaz fight, and he learned in the Nate Diaz 2 fight to kind of hold his like energy back, not throw crazy wheel kicks, not throw crazy hook kicks, kind of stay a little bit more conventional, walk forward, use the tools that you're so gifted with against your opponent, but do not waste your energy on unnecessary movements such as hook kicks, wheel kicks. And if you watch back that fight, he opens up with a hook kick and then a spinning wheel kick, right? And he kind of just walks forward with his hands down and just kind of hits a 1-2 and puts him down. But I think it's just a bad matchup for Dustin. Unless if Connor's boxing is as good as it was before, it's gonna be clean. He's gonna walk forward similarly. Maybe Dustin can hurt him if Connor kind of just keeps his hands like if he's not as sharp. But if you look at the times Connor has been in trouble, it's been one or two reasons. One reason, gets tired. That's one reason. Nate Diaz one fight, or a Floyd Mayweather fight, or he's expecting a takedown and clip him with the right hand. Chad Mendes fight. Chad faked a takedown and shot with the right hand over the top, clipped him. Didn't rock him or anything, but it landed hard, and you could see it. Khabib fight, shot, pretended to take down, shot the right hand over, and clipped him a little bit, right? So it's one of those two things that give Conor trouble. And I think in this fight, I don't think Dustin's going to really shoot that low single into a right overhand because first of all, he's southpaw, so it'd be, but they're both southpaw, so it doesn't matter. But it gets via a right single leg and shoot the left hand over the top. But it wouldn't. I don't think Dustin would do that because that's not really his style. And then it'd also have to be Conor getting tired, and I think Conor has made the adjustments to his cardio and his energy expenditure to where he doesn't gas himself completely in the first two rounds. And I think that gives Dustin a little bit of trouble.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think people are kind of overstating how good Dustin has gotten. Um, but I think people are ignoring the fact that yeah, Connor hasn't had the growth as recently as Dustin necessarily in people's like the public eye, but Dustin or Connor was the one that became double champ while Dustin was still figuring out how to be the fighter he is now. Like Connor's progression has been exponential. Now it's kind of like not plateaued, but it's been quietly growing. Whereas Dustin has been active, had a little more like exposure. People are getting more on the Dustin train, and you know he earned that respect. But at the same time, you can't discredit anything that Connor's done while he's been away. He's still gotten better. He's still trained all the time. He's still with the same camp. You know, nothing has changed. You know, he's matured more physically. He's still technically the same type of fighter he was. He still has the same skill set. I think looking at just recent fights, you know, people want to give Poirier all the credit, but Poirier's last two fights were not that great. I know in the Hooker fight he won. He beat the shit out of Hooker, but he got hit way too much. It went all 5 rounds. You know, Poirier essentially was a punching bag in the end of the first and in the second. He was getting just volume and volume put on him. You know, it wasn't that impressive until Poirier started to kind of pick it up and Hooker was tired. And so for me, it was like, okay, good job. You know, Hooker is a good fighter, but he's the guy that arguably lost to Felder, lost to Barbosa. there's not like it doesn't. Or am I getting the Barbosa fight mixed up with Felder? I can't remember now. But did he? Was it Felder that lost controversial to Barbosa, or was it Hooker?
Felder beat Barbosa controversially, and then Felder lost to Hooker.
Who was Hooker's fight before Felder?
I'm not sure.
I don't know. I got them mixed up because of the other controversy. But at the end of the day, Hooker was ranked, I don't know, around 10 prior to the Felder fight. He wasn't ranked very high, and so he wins controversially.
He beat Al Quinta before Felder.
By decision?
Yes, and then beat James Vick by a knockout punch. And then he lost to Edson Barbosa like 3 fights before that.
So his last 4 fights have not been that impressive. James Vick sucks. Barbosa is washed up. He was good. He's washed up. Mm-hmm. Felder is obviously, that was his last fight before retirement, or at least whatever the case was with his semi-retirement. Mm-hmm. And then he went on to kind of undeservedly fight Poirier and almost beat Poirier. So it was like, Poirier is a great fighter. He just gets, like I've said before, he gets hit way too much by pretty much anybody. He's just tough. And that's not a mindset that you can have when you're fighting a guy with like as good of striking as Conor. So that's just my biggest concern. And to the point you were saying, I do think Poirier can hurt Conor. It's just at what expense? If he's hurting Conor, there's a good chance Conor is also hurting him because they're in a firefight. And Dustin's not going to win that. Dustin's hooks to the head and to the body are a lot slower than Conor's straight left. So he's not going to be able to execute his boxing to the level that he wants when he keeps getting hit straight down the middle and then, push kicked up against the fence and knocked out of his rhythm constantly. I just don't think there's anything in his game plan that is particularly like mystifying that a guy like Conor wouldn't be able to figure out.
If you look at Dustin's last fight against an explosive southpaw with a piston of a left hand, it was Michael Johnson, and he got knocked out flatline by him. So similar.
True. And Johnson he's solid, but obviously
he's no Conor. But
no. That's very true. And I think it is, you have to look at who's actually beaten Conor. And there are guys that have a certain trait that allows them to kind of nullify what Conor's good at. Khabib is the best grappler in the UFC, Conor's biggest weakness, and his cardio. So you get a guy with unlimited cardio, strength, and grappling. It's a nightmare for Conor. And then you get a guy, Nate Diaz, who is literally a human punching bag who is going to get hit all night, but he doesn't get knocked out. And so Conor uses up all of his energy, and then Nate's the bigger guy and pretty much takes him down and just submits him. So it's like the legitimate losses that he's had have been kind of like, you can look back and say, oh yeah, I can see why it lost. When it's with Dustin, if he loses, it'll be because, there won't be any particular reason. It will just be that Conor's not as good as he was, because he should 10 out of 10 times beat Poirier in a normal situation, in my opinion. I just think there's nothing that Poirier does unique that Conor wouldn't be able to just unravel. So
I agree.
It's different with guys like Tony or Justin, who offer kind of a unique fight style, like Justin with his kicks, Tony with his cardio, his power, his own power, his grappling, a little more dangerous. But Dustin, he's a volume guy, doesn't offer much grappling. He's good, but doesn't offer that much offensively. So unless he comes out with a really good game plan, I don't see how he beats Connor.
I'd agree, definitely. And I love Dustin. It's just a bad matchup for him. Dustin needs someone that just can't outbox him, and Dustin's. I think it goes 2 rounds. I don't think he gets knocked out on the first. Dustin's tough. I think Connor's gonna sprint to the middle of the cage like he does every fight. He's gonna chase Dustin, and Dustin's gonna be a little bit smarter. One hole that Dustin has that will literally get him knocked out, I feel, is he moves left to right. He kind of bounces, has that boxing style, and he moves left to right. But then he has to reset his rhythm, so he stays in one place for a little bit, and then goes again.
Yeah.
And then he stays in one place and then goes again. When he stays in one place and resets his rhythm, that's when that left hand is coming. And Connor's going to time that and clip him.
Yeah, I think.
From a technical standpoint, that's how I think.
Oh, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think the fact that I think Dustin is not always the aggressor. Like like you said, he likes to set his feet. He likes to, dictate his own pace. And in the Hooker fight, Hooker was constantly coming at him. In the Khabib fight, obviously, Khabib was constantly coming at him. In the Gaethje fight, Gaethje was coming at him. Obviously, Alvarez is a little more balanced, but Alvarez was still kind of coming forward. Poirier likes to pick his shots, and Conor, I think, is going to come out aggressive. And I think Dustin's going to look a little flustered, kind of like how Cerrone did. And I think if he does that, it's already over. And if he makes it through 2 rounds, I would be very surprised. And I would actually, depending how that second round ends, I'd start to lean towards Dustin, but I don't know. I don't see it making it through 2 rounds, honestly. From my own financial sake, I'd like to see it make it through 3. Or
more than 46 seconds.
I'd like an entertaining fight, but I want Conor to win. I think you feel the same.
I agree. Yeah, definitely, I agree. Conor's just I question how his cardio has improved, right? So like after he got pounded by Khabib in the second round, he still came out into the third and was able to box and throw hands, which shows improvement because after round 1 against Nate Diaz, he couldn't throw a punch. That's why he shot a takedown. When has Conor shot a takedown? That one time where he was exhausted. He was still throwing punches in that third round, right? And that was the game plan, was to kind of let Khabib gas himself out until the 4th round happened, obviously. But I'm curious to see how his cardio has improved because after he fought Cerrone, I think we came away with more questions still than we did answers.
Yeah, I think that's also one of the biggest questions about Conor that's never been answered fully, because he does all this like kind of cross training methods. He does like almost like triathlon type training, or at least pretends to, with the cycling, the rowing, running, doing all this stuff. And he is obviously in great shape. Like there's no question about that. I think it comes down to his own physiology. And like you said earlier with Oliveira, it has everything to do with their style. Conor is like any other fast twitch athlete. He is very much like explosive power, but very little in terms of endurance. So like Conor would, like scientifically they would say Conor would have more type 2 muscle fiber. He's explosive. He's got that twitch. He's very fast. He's quick. He has really good reflexes. Those are all indicative of someone with very high type 2 muscle fiber. Guys like Nate Diaz, guys like Tony, guys like even Khabib, those are more like type 1 muscle fiber guys who are just go all day, never get tired, just constant. They're not very explosive, but they're always going forward. And I think that's why it's Conor's kryptonite, because his body physically cannot ever adapt to that, no matter how hard he trains. He's always going to be a guy built for a striking match, built for like a boxing fight. And that's why guys like Poirier is a great matchup for him. Guys like Cerrone, guys like any of the strikers in the top of the division, because he is going to be able to fight the fight that is conducive to his physical abilities, which it's not that he doesn't have cardio, but look at Justin Gaethje. Gaethje gets tired. He gets tired. Like, we've seen it, and it looked like he's able to maintain a high pace, but we've seen him like he's just kind of throwing like limp hooks and like kicks. Like, it's just that like dog mentality that he has that keeps him alive. But he's definitely tired. I think Connor's like his flashiness definitely doesn't help with his like his physical abilities. I think they don't mix well for like a long fight. But he is entertaining because of that. I don't know. I think with Poirier, I don't think that his cardio is going to get tested as much. I think even like you look at with the Eddie fight, when Eddie tried to grapple him, they're the same size. Connor was able to shrug him off. Poirier is not that good of a wrestler to give Connor trouble against the fence, I don't think. So I don't think Connor's going to get his arms gassed out like he did with Nate or with Khabib. So I don't know. I think it's definitely a fight that Connor won't have to worry as much about physical abilities, especially since he's had such a layoff. He should be in the best shape of his life. If he's not, I would be pretty disappointed.
One thing that is concerning is he obviously has put on some muscle mass since we've seen him, and that obviously takes more like to oxidize all those and provide oxygen to all those muscles. And
yeah,
even though part of it it's timing for Connor, I think that's mostly it. Part like a good amount of it is like probably like 30% is his speed, and like 70% is his timing. But if that does get impacted and he does have to oxidize more muscle fibers to generate punches and kicks and all that, he has put on muscle mass, so I feel like that's the only way he would get extremely tired, but highly unlikely.
Yeah, no. I mean, I definitely agree. It's not something you can predict, because obviously, like, look at his fight with Nate, the second fight with Nate Diaz. He was exhausted. He didn't die. He didn't, fall down. He trained smarter, and he won controversially, but he won. So I think, it all depends how he's training, how he's preparing his body, if he's doing all the things right. You can't overlook Dustin. That's the last thing that, would be his detriment. If he overlooks Dustin and doesn't train exactly how he needs to train, then I could definitely see some issues.
No more proper 12.
No more proper 12, and no more stakes the fight. Stay away from that, and be smart. Don't be Mike Perry, 4 pounds overweight. Terrible.
So, like during the week of the cut, eating hamburgers and hot dogs and
like, you're not even supposed to eat like solid foods during the week you're with. It's like forbidden.
let alone a cheeseburger.
Oh no. It's you have carbs, all those carbs and all the fat in that meat, not good.
Yeah.
But no, I think it's just I can't wait for 256. I can't wait for the Connor fight. Can't wait for Stipe and Ngannou too. Izzy and Jan. Piotr Jan and Aljo got canceled again. So
visa issues.
Huh?
I heard it's visa issues for Peter Yan that canceled.
Yeah, that's what I saw, and it is what it is. But if that's the case, you're an active fighter. Like, you should, if you're gonna have a fight, you should temporarily like move your fight camp if it's gonna be an issue. Like, that's your job. Like, it'd be one thing if it was like Khabib where his dad died, but all you have to do is travel. Go, like, you have months to plan. If you think you're gonna have a title fight, go to the US, go to Dubai, wherever the fight's gonna be, and set up camp. Like, I don't understand how these guys are getting so caught up, and there's things I obviously don't know. But still, it's seems kind of ridiculous that they're getting, like, you're professional athletes in a billion-dollar organization. There should be a little bit more. It should be a little bit more organized.
I mean, with COVID, I guess you could say that, give them a break, but I would tend to agree. But it's just a crazy year in general. So,
I mean, the thing about it, like Khabib, like Piotr, I don't know where he's fighting out of. Like,
Tiger Muay Thai.
so he's in Thailand.
Yes.
So Valentina trains at Tiger Muay Thai, and well, I don't know if she currently does.
Valentina kind of just travels everywhere.
She traveled, and so it's like Thailand, out of all places, like, they have travel ban. Like, he could have easily traveled, probably to another country in Asia, and then traveled to America from there. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, because he's not the only guy from Tiger Muay Thai that trains, for the UFC, or is in the UFC. So it is what it is. I mean, maybe he's afraid of Aljo's insane abilities.
Yes, it's gonna be a very interesting fight.
I think Aljo is the least scary guy at that weight class. Like, if I had to pick one guy in the top 10, like, I have to fight them, I think I would probably pick Aljo. Because, like, his best attribute is wrestling, and the fact that just the way Mirage knocked him out is just so embarrassing.
Yeah.
How do you get? That's like a UFC
knocked out in
video
general, but
knockout.
that was pretty bad.
What'd you say?
It's pretty embarrassing in general when you get knocked out. So
It's very true. I almost got knocked out last week somehow.
it's okay. We can get rounds in this week.
When are you back?
Wednesday.
Maybe I don't know. What time on Wednesday are you back?
Afternoon.
Maybe
We can talk about it. Yeah.
we'll figure it out.
Sounds good.
Gotta make sure you cut your nails.
I will.
But yeah. Well, that'll be good. What else? Anything else interesting on your mind? On the
We'll obviously talk about things when we get closer to the date, but I think we did a good preview, and we'll get to it next week. So to look forward to. But Hamzat, your boy.
oh,
Overrated.
which is that the next fight night?
No, it's like the last card, I think. So we have time. But
Okay, I was gonna say, I was like, oh man, how did I forget about that one? But I love me some Hamzat. So
I do not love me some Hamzat. So
whatever. Well, you can't deny the hype train either keeps rolling or it goes off the rails. But I mean,
I think his last fight was against a 5th grade teacher, but it's fine.
I mean, it's true, but everyone has to start somewhere. He was like I don't know. He was a very good wrestler in where is he now? Not Denmark.
Sweden.
Yes, he's fighting out of Sweden. He is a very good wrestler in Sweden, but also prior to Sweden, his home country, in Russia, somewhere in Russia. I feel so
the mountains.
the hills. But I mean, he's a very good wrestler, and fucking Leroy Edwards is the most boring welterweight of all time. So I just hope Hamzat goes through him. Hopefully, then we get a Stephen Wonderboy Thompson back into the UFC. After all I get out of him is YouTube videos these days.
And Sensei Seth.
Him kicking Houston Jones. So, I mean, I
Yeah.
like it. He's honestly a better YouTuber, but I want to see him back. This is the first time I ever saw him like annoyed. Was getting called out by Hamzat. Like
Definitely.
he was actually like bitter.
You
But
should see him. There's a clip of him like raging in Warzone. So
oh man, but he's like not allowed to cuss.
no, he cusses. He cusses in the video
Oh really?
when he plays Warzone. Yeah.
That's funny. I feel like he just seems like such a like Southern Christian guy. Like literally just like has had the same haircut since he was 6 years old. Like he trained karate all his life. Like that's the least tough thing you could do. But somehow,
Technique Tuesdays tomorrow. You better stop making fun of him.
I guess so. The way it's funny, the way he spars and practices, you're like, oh man, this guy like, there's no way he's good. Like because he does his little like front like I don't know the name of the karate technique, but literally like where you just lift your lead leg and throw like a flick, pretty much, not a teep, but like a side kick.
Yeah, a side
It's
kick.
like it's like literally a slap. Just makes karate is just. I know you did karate, so I don't want to.
I've changed my style.
You weaponize it, I guess. We'll have to.
Yeah, this could be a discussion for next time.
I have some ideas also for if we get a training session in, update our training schedule a little bit. So
yeah, we can grapple.
I will I'll introduce some more theories.
Sounds good, man.
All right. I will talk to you soon. Hopefully there's something interesting in the next week that we could discuss. If not, I'll see you later.
Hopefully we don't end this podcast and then 5 things get announced like last week, but it's fine.
Well, we'll have something to talk about then.
All right. See you, buddy.
All right. Adios.